Hello, all. The Irrational Skeptic here, and today I am going to be doing a video on misconceptions of the INFP. I've been around the MBTI typology socionics community for a while now, and it seems that the INFPs tend to get a bad rep in terms of people calling them a little bit too feely. And I just wanted to clear some things about the functions and how they really operate and how it doesn't actually lead to INFPs being super feely types. They are actually quite sophisticated in how they interact with the world. So, firstly, I'll just say the INFP has introverted feeling as their dominant function, extroverted intuition as their auxiliary, introverted sensing as their tertiary, and extroverted thinking as their inferior function. So, the main axis that you're gonna want to be concerned with when thinking about the INFP is the FI versus TE. So they are constantly stuck in a world where they are prioritizing their feeling. This is how their emotions engage with the world and how they have to then translate this into words versus how to act in the world in an efficient manner that is kind of devoid of feeling whatsoever. So, just to say, the world itself is heavily based on extroverted thinking. Most countries use this for efficiency, and once you get larger in organizations and society and countries, this extroverted thinking starts to become very prominent because it is very hard to organize a society based on what different individuals feel, or different individuals have their own individuality. But extroverted thinking will tend to look at commonalities across people. What are people's kind of basic needs? So you need water, food, light, and it kind of pushes away the things that when it starts to become a little bit too complicated, I like blue, you like green, then extroverted thinking tends to push that aside. Those are just personal preferences. And introverted feeling is concerned with that. You like blue, I like green, he likes magenta, that kind of thing. So, introverted feelers are stuck in a world that doesn't take into account everyone being an individual, everyone being unique. And so, because human beings themselves are kind of very malleable, it is actually possible to force people to fit a certain pattern regardless of what they prefer. They'll kind of push back their own individuality to fit in with society. And when you see introverted feeling, this is a very individual function. So it wants to break the barriers. It doesn't want to play by the rules per se. They're actually kind of quote unquote badasses because they don't want to follow anyone's rules. They don't want to follow anyone's definition of how a person should be because they know everyone is different. Every single person is an individual. Even if you go into biology, only twins end up being very similar in their genetic makeup, but they actually also end up being different in other things when you take into account personality. So their enneagram or their MBTI will end up being different, and if they grow up in different environments, they end up sharing similar qualities, but they're still different. And this is what the INFP really understands at a very deep level. And they the way they express this is that they will always want people to be authentic, and it is very hard for them to live in this world. I think this is something I've seen Eric from Talking with Famous People, uh, his channel. He has spoken about this, and it's actually very true. It's very hard for them to live in this world because this world, we have grown to sizes of countries, nations, and in order for these machines to operate efficiently, they cannot have everyone not being on the same page. Extroverted thinking does that. Extroverted feeling does that. The INFP does not prize extroverted feeling. It prizes introverted feeling over extroverted feeling. So they do not want everyone to act the same. And you have a kind of contradiction going on between them and society. This is the same for a lot of introverts, sorry, but not every introvert. For example, the ISFJ is pretty comfortable. They have that introversion going on, but they have extroverted feeling in their complete four functional stack for the MBTI. And of course, if you look at the whole eight stacks of cognitive functions, they still have introverted feeling in their unconscious, completely unconscious. So they don't really use it or prefer it to use it. Let me say they can use it, they're good at using it, but they prefer extroverted feeling. I'm talking about the ISFJ here. So the ISFJ will more easily be able to say, yeah, well, everyone just has to, conform to society because, we have to play by some similar rules and everyone has to just, uh, be the same sometimes and you don't have to uh, express your individuality everywhere you go. But they can be stubborn as well. Their introverted sensing allows them to see how maybe past decisions based on everyone acting the same hasn't been good, and they can make an extroverted feeling judgment kind of by saying, oh, well, everyone actually isn't the same. Maybe there are better rules that we can actually craft in order for people to be able to express their individuality in the context of a huge society. But I mean, they won't tend to be able to give a very good way to do that. Sorry to say, because they can think about these things, but they really don't know how to bring it into reality. So coming back to the INFPs, they are very concerned with having a world that really does not exist. As it is now, as the world is now, where we exist in a kind of conglomeration of differing worldviews, and that's billions of different worldviews, we cannot help but systematize everything using extroverted thinking in order to then operate a little bit more smoothly. So what ends up happening within the INFPs is that, or for them to actually kind of live their best lives, they'll have to create small pockets of places where they can express themselves the best. This can be done in smaller community work. This can be done through churches, charity work, is where they can really express themselves and get a smaller subset, a very smaller subset of society to behave in ways that are more authentic. And I would go further to say if there were INFPs kind of all over the world and they all maximized their type, then they would all try to make these tiny uh, little niches of people where everyone in the world is then able to have an INFP that is organizing them in a way that will allow them to express themselves authentically, but it just doesn't, when you start to scale with these type of ideas, it doesn't work as well as one might imagine. And it's a lot of work, and you actually have to also take into account whether every INFP is willing to go out there and create these small communities. So, I mean, it is the best case scenario for where everyone will be living their authentic self, but it just doesn't work practically. And this is where the TE dominants come in, the ESTJs, the ENTJs, they come in and try to systematize the world where everyone can have at least a baseline of comfort, be able to survive, do the basics, survive, reproduce, have food, have water. This is the kind of things they know are necessary for life. But once you start to get past that, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once you start to get past that, you start to need people like the INFPs because they are more concerned with people's self-actualization, so to speak. But yeah, I'm doing this video primarily because it's not that INFPs are crybabies per se. They are, but it will come off as that, and it will look like that, I must confess, because they are deeply wounded by a world that won't let anyone really be themselves. So I think I'll end that video there. I might expand on this in future videos, but I just thought I needed to put this out there. INFPs are not crybabies. They have a very different view of the world that if people took seriously, it will lead people to be as stressed as they are when they're in this kind of world. Because if they are prioritizing introverted feeling, then you can imagine how much pain they must feel going through the world and seeing everyone kind of cookie cuttering themselves just to get by. Okay? Well, yeah, that will be it for this video. The Irrational Skeptic signing off.